Hey, what's up motivators? Taren here. Now that races are back in full swing, we're seeing a lot of athletes that are seeing race times and the results of several years of hard work. And what we're seeing a lot of are people that are saying, man, I've been working so hard, but it's not being reflected in my race times. Now, this is a surefire sign that I look at and I listen for when I start saying, you know what, the way that you're training is going to lead to underperformances. What I want to talk about today and show you visually so you can really understand the difference between a lot of the traditional methods of training versus our MōTTIV method of training that we believe leads to better performance, better health, better enjoyment of the sport, and it makes sure that all of the work that you're putting in is going to actually result in better performances.
My name is Taren Gazelle. In my 20s, I was overweight, unfulfilled, and couldn't even run to the end of the block. Over the following years, I found endurance sports, lost 65 pounds, won age groups, raced world championships, broke records, and trained and learned from some of the best athletes and coaches in the world. You too can use endurance sports to change your life and accomplish your fitness goals. You just need a system that's meant for us amateurs who want to be our best while feeling our strongest and healthiest. My company MōTTIV offers that system, and I want to share some of the tips from it today.
Thank you for tuning in, motivators. I remember back in 2017, I had been doing triathlon for about 7 years. I'd had some really good success in 2016, and I figured, hey, I want to step up and see what I'm capable of doing. So I committed to a very traditional training plan where it was really structured, really challenging. I was putting in good work day after day, week after week, and then race times came, and I actually got slower. I had some of the worst performances of my life over the course of 2017, despite Training Peaks saying that my fitness level was at an all-time high, despite making sure that I hit every single interval, every single workout, every single day. And I was so confused because I'd done such good work, but here I was going backwards. So in between 2017 and 2018, I rejigged my training because I needed to make sure that I stayed in the sport. I had unfinished business. So I rejigged my training completely using completely different methods that actually allowed me to train less. Magically, I got faster somehow. Now let me explain what I see happening in endurance sports in a lot of cases. Let's say we have an upper level of the total maximum amount of training hours that somebody can actually put in and their body can adapt to and absorb. When you go beyond that, your body's not going to be able to absorb it. You're not really going to be able to adapt to it. If anything, you're just going to invite illness, injury, and overtraining. On the other end of things, we have the lower limit here, where if you're above that lower limit, you're going to make adaptations. If you're below it, it's really just too easy to make progress. Now, where I was in that 2017 season is where most people train. It's how far can I push myself? Because pushing is what's going to actually result in adaptation, or so they think. So they stay right up at this maximum level, and if anything, they're constantly going over it. And what happens is, in a lot of cases, they'll go over it and ride over it until they crash, and then bam, they say to their coach, I really need a rest because I'm not feeling so good. And then you get a rest and you come down here. What I started doing in 2018, and this is the method that we use in our training app that allowed me to do a 4:36 half Ironman, where my previous personal best was a 4:44, and I did that 4:36 on just 9 average hours of training per week, is I stayed down in this adaptation zone down here for the majority of the year. Now, towards race season, I did kind of get up towards that upper limit, but I was always staying in that adaptation range. And what this allows you to do is make sure that every single workout that you hit, you're actually going to be able to adapt to. You're going to be able to get faster. You're going to be able to absorb it without beating up your system. So when I see athletes saying, I'm training so hard, I'm ready to nail it, but then they get to a race and they go, what happened there? It feels like I'm working so hard, but my performances aren't improving. I know almost certainly they're going up and down beyond what they're actually capable of doing. And if anything, that makes you go backwards. What we do with our training system is we come down into this level and make sure that every single workout that you do has the ability to actually adapt to it and make an improvement. And what we hear from the athletes that use our training app is they go, wow, I'm training less and I feel better. And in some cases, full disclosure, they say that they're performing the same, but then they come back and they say, I was ready to train 6 days after my half Ironman. I was ready to train so much quicker. And this allows the athletes to constantly level good training upon good training upon good training upon good training, as opposed to the other method where they're just constantly struggling to stay afloat. They're not actually adapting, and they're not layering a good race on top of a good race. They're layering a bunch of training on top of each other, getting to a race and then going, oh, okay, I'm glad that's over with, but I underperformed. Okay, I'm gonna work harder. And then they just go through this cycle of trying to stay afloat as opposed to building upon every single session, every single workout, every single week, and every single training cycle leading to a race. Now, a couple ways that we make sure that that happens is, first thing, we communicate that an appropriate level of training every single week is going to be the sweet spot. And let me explain. So let's say 4 hours is the bare minimum to train for a half Ironman, just for example. And let's say that as the athlete trains, they're feeling good, and we're gonna use the green line to indicate they're feeling good. And then somewhere around 7 hours, they start dipping into, well, maybe not feeling so good. And not feeling so good means they're pretty sore the next day, or their sleep is impaired, or their motivation to get the second workout in the day is fairly low, or they're feeling like the same workouts that they did before are suddenly quite a bit harder. All of these are indications that they're getting into a level of training where they're not actually able to adapt. Now, when we get to the point here that becomes red, let's say this is maybe 11 hours of training per week. Well, this is when we start seeing athletes that say things like, oh, really gotta get over my low motivation. If you want it bad enough, you gotta push for it. Sore muscles are the cost of doing business. Or when you're sick or injured, they say, well, these are just parts of getting through a good training plan and reaching your goals. No, these are actually indications that your body isn't able to keep up. These aren't indications that you just need to get over yourself and have more motivation and be tougher. No, these are indications that you need to go back, because going beyond this is getting into the point at which you can't actually adapt to training. Now, where is it along this path that actually hits you? Well, it's different for everyone. If you're somebody who is in their early 20s and maybe only has a part-time job and has a very stress-free life and can focus very heavily on recovery, well, you can probably push up into this 10 to 15 hours while still being able to recover. If you have a very stressful life, if you're new to training, if you are very busy at work, you're running around with kids, well, pushing more and doing more hours isn't going to make you faster. If anything, it's going to make you slower. And that's where we say, go down into the point at which you feel okay. And this is where you've got to learn to be a good athlete that recognizes when signals in your body are saying, hey, this is a bit too much. And then being mature enough and tough enough to say, I'm gonna check my ego at the door and do the real hard work of saying, I can't pull off huge training hours, but you know what? You're going to actually perform better by recognizing when it's time to pull back. Now, to give you some comfort that less can actually be more, there was a study that was done that looked at Ironman athletes who trained less than 11 hours per week, athletes who trained 11 to 14 hours per week, which is kind of what people assume is the cost of doing business for an Ironman, and then athletes who trained 14 hours a week or more, which is kind of assumed to be the amount of hours that you need to perform well in an Ironman. And they looked at which of these three groups actually had the best performance in Ironman Brazil. It was actually the athletes who trained less than 11 hours per week that performed the fastest. So contrary to what everyone thinks, in a lot of cases, less is actually more, because you can get more of those workouts where you're actually adapting, where your body is able to absorb it and go, oh, I know what happened in this workout. I have the energy, I have the ability, I have the neuromuscular capabilities to actually adapt to it and get faster based off of it, instead of, wow, that was a hard workout, I spent all of my energy in just surviving it. Whew, we survived, okay, now I have to go put my energy in just barely recovering and staying alive, as opposed to getting stronger, which is what it's much easier to do when you have a nicer balance. And the nice thing about this is that if you have a less is more approach, well, you're going to enjoy training more, and it's going to be much easier for most people to actually execute training. It's going to open up endurance training and these life-changing experiences to so many more people, because there are very few people who have the time to train maximum hours. And it's intimidating for new people to think, well, I have to train maximum hours. So if we start changing the culture away from more is more down to appropriate is more, and often less is more, and health and recovery is the most, all of a sudden so many more people are going to have the races of their life, the experiences of their life, live a more fulfilling life, take on bigger challenges, and perform better. You can achieve your goals by doing less than you think. So hopefully that empowers you to go and set bigger, loftier goals. And if you need a training plan to do it, we know a really good one with the MōTTIV method. Thank you for watching, motivators. If you're looking for a training plan that incorporates these methods, that is as good as a one-on-one coach, but as inexpensive as doing it yourself, check out our MōTTIV training app that covers triathlons, running races, duathlons, swim runs, and cycling events. There's a link in the description below where you can check out your customized training plan for free. Also, if you'd rather listen to these tips, we also publish these videos in podcast format on the Taren's MōTTIV Method podcast, so you can check that out. And if you don't want to do either of those things, but you found this video helpful, hit us up with a virtual high five by smashing the like button below. Later, motivators.